what type of things does a business need to focus on right away in order to capture their audience's attention and engage them?
hmm No, it's not 10 seconds anymore. It's actually much, much shorter. We actually talk about a 5-second fifth grader test, meaning when someone comes to your website, you have no more than 5 seconds to really capture their attention and be able to answer their question or for them to see some sort of benefit to them. So obviously above the fold, an old newspaper term of what they see, what your potential client may see when they come to your website is going to be critical. And having that load quickly, be aesthetically pleasing, and very clearly in large letters tell them who you are and what you can do for them is really important. But then you also have to have a next action. So, what step do you want them to take when they see that you may be a potential fit and they want more information? What do you want them to do? Do you want to fill out a form? Do you want them to call you? Do you want them to take a survey? What is it you want them to do? And that really needs to be very prominent in that hero section, the above the fold, so they can click on that button and go right where they need to quickly. If for some reason you're not quite ready to have them take that step, you have to then at least have them know very quickly and intuitively where they do need to go. So maybe you have 2 or 3 choices you want them to make. Again, that needs to be above that fold. And if you need them to go down below, then you need to indicate that there's something more below that you want them to do. But you have to make it easy for them because people's attention spans are short and they're getting shorter all the time. And so being able to capture them within that 3 to 5 second range is imperative.
Hi, and welcome to the 91 Day Success Podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan, and I am thrilled today to have probably the most special guest I've ever had, and that is Beth from Valorous Circle. And the reason she's the specialist guest I've ever had, she happens to be my wife, as well as the owner of an amazing agency. And I'm really excited today to have the opportunity to interview her and learn a little bit more and have her share some of that journey with you guys. So before we start, though, Beth, would you kind of tell everybody a little bit about yourself and about your agency and kind of who you guys serve and what you do?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast today, Jonathan. It's a pleasure to be here. I am the CEO of Valorous Circle, and Valorous Circle is a digital marketing agency where we provide services, marketing services, specifically to the home services niche. And we provide things like marketing automation and authority-based SEO, as well as automation. So your marketing automation, customer connection automation, just really to help our home service agencies get in touch a little easier with their target audience. And I do have an amazing team. So I have to say we are an amazing marketing agency.
Well, I absolutely agree with you on that, even though I'm a little bit biased since I happen to know the owner rather well. But no, I agree with you. I'm really excited to share your story today and have you tell a little bit about it. One of the things I think that's so often overlooked nowadays is we talk about things like SEO and marketing automation and all this and that is
Mhm.
we often don't talk about the hub of that marketing, and that's the website itself and
Mm.
how important it is today to still have a good website. Beth, I know you spent a lot of time over the last decade really refining how websites should be created and designed and all that. Can you share a little bit with our audience about what you look for and what you're trying to accomplish when you're creating a website for a client and why that website is still important in 2024?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, it used to be obviously that people would go directly to a URL or domain name for a website to find out about a company, and that'd be the only place they would go. So that is definitely the hub of your activity, and that is the first impression you make with your clients or your potential clients. And so obviously websites are important because you need to put your best foot forward that when they actually land on your website that you can quickly tell them who you are and what service you can be to them, what benefit you have for them. And then they can easily contact you from that point. Over time, of course, now omnipresence is so much more important because people aren't just going to your website, they're going to your social media like LinkedIn, Facebook, that type of thing. They're watching videos on YouTube. But those still need to push them back or direct them back to their website. So, a website being awesome, being attractive, being easy to navigate, and providing the information they need to answer their questions is still just as important as it was 10 or even 20 or even 30 years ago now.
That's amazing, isn't it? That we think back, and it really is. It was 30 years ago, essentially, that the internet started, and
Yes,
wow, we're here today, still working on it. It's pretty cool. So
absolutely.
I know in the old days, and again, that could be any time in the last 30 years, they really talked about how when someone came to your website, you had just 10 seconds or so in order to get their attention. Two
Mhm.
questions related to that for our audience out there, business owners and entrepreneurs and professionals. One, is it still as long as 10 seconds? And two, what type of things does a business need to focus on right away in order to capture their audience's attention and engage them?
Mhm. No, it's not 10 seconds anymore. It's actually much, much shorter. We actually talk about a 5-second fifth grader test, meaning when someone comes to your website, you have no more than 5 seconds to really capture their attention and be able to answer their question or for them to see some sort of benefit to them. So, obviously, above the fold, an old newspaper term of what they see, what your potential client may see when they come to your website is going to be critical. And having that load quickly, be aesthetically pleasing, and very clearly in large letters tell them who you are and what you can do for them is really important. But then you also have to have a next action. So, what step do you want them to take when they see that you may be a potential fit and they want more information? What do you want them to do? Do you want to fill out a form? Do you want them to call you? Do you want them to take a survey? What is it you want them to do? And that really needs to be very prominent in that hero section, the above the fold, so they can click on that button and go right where they need to quickly. If for some reason you're not quite ready to have them take that step, you have to then at least have them know very quickly and intuitively where they do need to go. So maybe you have 2 or 3 choices you want them to make. Again, that needs to be above that fold. And if you need them to go down below, then you need to indicate that there's something more below that you want them to do. But you have to make it easy for them because people's attention spans are short and they're getting shorter all the time. And so being able to capture them within that 3 to 5 second range is imperative.
That's a really good update and a good information. I wasn't even aware it was quite that short nowadays. You mentioned something I want to dive into just a little bit, Beth, and that was you talked about how people not only need to get their attention, but they need to help that viewer, that visitor to their website understand, and I'm going to paraphrase, but what's in it for them. I know
Right.
so many businesses when they come, when they launch a website, it's all about here's what my business does, here's what we serve. Why is it important that we twist that to talking about the customer so quickly? Shouldn't we be starting off and saying, hey, we're an HVAC company and we're the best at this? Why twist it into making it about the prospect?
Well, certainly they need to know what you do so that they know they're actually at the right place. So, if they're looking for someone, to fix their plumbing and you're an electrician, then that's going to cause a problem. So, having them know very quickly by visual cues what you do is important. But they really just need a general sense of that. In today's world, people are busy. They've got issues, they've got lives to live, and they're going to be looking very quickly to see if you can help them out, if you can meet their needs. So, talking about yourself, honestly, they really don't care. They don't really care about you, your business. They want to know if you can help them solve their
Mm.
problem, get an issue solved, something that they need to take care of. They want to know if you can do that. And if you can't prove to them very quickly that you have the potential to do that, they're going to go on to someone else.
That's really interesting, and I appreciate that perspective. I reminds me of in many years ago, I learned about the radio station they called WIIFM, and they used to teach in marketing about what's in it for me, and we needed to talk about that to
Mhm.
the prospect for them to understand. Because you're right, we're all busy, we're being bombarded with messages. We don't have time to analyze and figure it out and try to make sense of it. It's got to
Right.
make sense to us right away,
Mhm.
especially in that first above the fold part that you're talking about. That's so critical. Oh,
Mhm.
very interesting. You mentioned you do something you called authority-based SEO. And obviously, our audience is familiar with search engine optimization or SEO. Can you talk to us a little bit about why authority-based SEO versus any other type of SEO?
Mhm, mhm. Well, when people are out there searching through Google, they are looking for, again, an answer to a problem. They're generally problem solving, or they're trying to gain some education or awareness about a particular topic. When we talk about authority-based SEO, what we're talking about are basically blog posts, article posts that would be produced by a company, posted on their blog, that would then establish them as an expert in a particular area. For example, let's go back to the HVAC example. If an HVAC company is really good at what they do, then they need to be out there posting content, letting potential clients know that they understand the field, the topic, the industry, and the woes of their potential customers. So they need to be putting that information out there, just like they're teaching or educating people about the benefits of different types of furnaces or air conditioners, maybe ecological factors, maybe economical factors, do it yourself factors. They can spread that information out there and it establishes them as an authority. So, authority based SEO is not so much directly about the company, but showing how much you know. So, in the blog posts that we create, when we do that, we don't necessarily even mention the company's name. So, if there's a home service agency, a HVAC agency, we don't necessarily mention that HVAC agency's name within the body of that article. But then when clients are looking for a solution to their HVAC problem, that information will come up. And then at the end, or maybe they'll then see where that blog post is located. They'll go, oh, wow. Maybe this heating company can solve my problem. Maybe this heating company is mindful of the environment and what they use and their practices. So they then go, wow, they have this great do it yourself article, but you know what? That sounds like too much work. They must really know what they're doing. So I'm going to hire them to do it. The beauty of that is we can also then link some of those articles together, forming a web of knowledge. And therefore, that quickly increases the SEO of that particular HVAC company very quickly, much more quickly than traditional SEO practices. And not the SEO practices as we've traditionally done them are bad. This is in addition to that.
Interesting. So what I'm hearing you say then is that this has been kind of an evolution over time and an updated way to do that. It makes sense though. If I'm
Exactly.
looking to hire that home service contractor, I want to make sure very quickly that that's somebody that's going to be capable of serving my needs, and I'm
Mhm.
probably less worried about whether their blog post ranks for a keyword, and I'm far more
Right.
interested that they're demonstrating an expertise across the spectrum. So
Mhm.
that makes a lot of sense. I appreciate you sharing that and explaining that.
Absolutely.
How about local service? I know that, a lot of, and especially in the home services industry, a lot of those clients are focused on a fairly small area, at least, compared to me. I'm looking at obviously working with clients nationally and internationally, and that average home service company isn't. They're generally going to be looking at somebody, I'm guessing, within maybe a 30 to 60-minute drive from their office. How does Valorous Circle and what things do you guys do as an agency to help those home service companies rank in that local market? Is that the same authority based SEO, or how does that work?
It's a little bit different. It does all tie together quite nicely, and there's one connecting factor, and the name of that is Google. In Google, they have what's called a map pack, and that then through their Google Business profile, we can update that home services Google Business profile with relevant information that says where they're located, who they serve, so that when people are doing searches, they're the first ones to come up. So if you live within, or if your company is within, maybe 5 miles of a given homeowner, you're going to come up more quickly than some company that is 10 or 15 or 20 miles away. So we can definitely optimize that Google Business profile, get you in the map pack. And that's really critical because people want someone close to them that can be responding to them quickly, and obviously closer is better than farther away.
Makes perfect sense. Well, as I mentioned, our audience is really made up of a lot of other business owners, entrepreneurs, and people like that, other digital agency owners as well. But let's take a step back and talk about how did you get into the digital marketing world? Is that where you started? And again, I know some of the answers, but I'd like to share with our audience. How did you get involved in the digital marketing space, and how has that maybe changed over the time that you've been involved there?
Mhm. Well, actually, you got me involved in the digital marketing
Yes, I
space.
know that.
But I've enjoyed it vastly. I love website creations, everything about website. That's just websites are fun to create. We do such a great job at Valorous Circle creating our websites that I'm so proud of our team, and I just really have always enjoyed that aspect, especially of digital marketing and people helping clients really get an online presence. One thing that was identified at the beginning, when we first started and Valorous Circle was created, was that developers were developing websites, but they were technically created correctly, but they weren't aimed or focused at sales. So they weren't targeting the audiences really that needed to be targeted. Maybe they looked beautiful, maybe they were constructed very well with code, but they didn't have that marketing and sales aspect. And really that's why home service companies need a website, is one, to establish themselves as authorities, two, to basically get leads so that they can find people that they can help, customers that they can serve. So that's really kind of what started it, was just that desire to really focus in on the needs of clients, small businesses especially, that needed a way to reach their target audience. And that just became a passion of mine, to be able to really serve that industry, serve those small businesses, and help point them in the right direction. And also give them a website that they can trust and feel good about, that they know is going to have an excellent design, that they know is going to rank them higher on the list of Google, that they know will really be an all-encompassing package to help drive those leads to them. So I just really enjoyed it, and I really love business. I love leading my company, and again, I have a great team. So it's like being with family.
Well, I appreciate that. It was a great segue into actually my next question, which I want to talk to you a little bit about leadership and your perspectives on owning and running a company. I know from
Mhm.
chatting with you over the holidays, one of the things you're working on and continuing to roll out is not just information about marketing itself and a website itself, but helping homeowner or home service companies understand more about leadership and about management and about how to run their companies, and sharing some of the lessons you've learned, I should say, over the years. Can you
Mhm.
tell me a little bit about that, and why is that such a passion for you to share some of that experience and knowledge and to help others maybe learn from the lessons that didn't go well for you or the lessons you've learned over the years?
Right, right. Well, definitely, um, my gifts, if you will, my skills really go in their area of operations. I certainly have more recently been able to, stretch my visionary wings, is if you would. But I've always really loved working with my team and getting to know them and having them get to know me is really critical in having a good relationship. You have to keep them motivated. You have to make sure their needs are being met. You need to be empathetic to them. At the same time, you need to set very clear expectations of what you want from them, what you expect to see in their work product. So, clear communication is key. Getting to know them, as I mentioned. One way that I do that is I run some assessments. And so just personality assessments, work assessments, no right or wrong answers, but just so that I can understand what's important to them and what I might see as far as the way they work. And they'll know and understand me better in the way I work. And just having that open communication and that dialogue, that transparency is so important. Also, just to keep morale up, through the tough times, and to reward them during good times, bad times, doesn't matter which, but to reward them and give them that pat on the back and tell them you're rooting for them and how much I appreciate them. Those are all very, very important things. And I think as an owner of a company, it's so easy to fall into a couple categories. One of those is that you're just too busy to give your team members some individualized attention. And it's amazing you can give them some individualized attention uh, pretty easily if you do it in little bites. You don't need to give everybody, 3 hours of your time a week, but just a few moments to acknowledge them, to commend them, to encourage them. A day or every few days really, really helps. Smiling. It's amazing when you're an owner of a company, it's stressful. You have financial burdens, you have, sales concerns, you have execution concerns. You want to make sure you're delivering your product well. It's kind of hard to smile when you're really intently concerned about what the next step for your business is going to be. But just doing something as simple as smiling when you see an employee and acknowledging them goes a long, long way. So just making sure that, again, you have good communication, that you understand each other, you have that transparency, and that you're also kind, but you're firm. Employees do a lot better when they actually know what is expected of them, and they like that. They want to know what the expectations are for them and how they're doing. And if they need some correction, or they need some constructive criticism, it's important to do that too. I always use a message, or a method called sandwiching, where you give them a positive, you tell them what you want them to change, and then you follow up with a positive, so that they feel encouraged and they don't even really feel corrected. So there's some techniques you can use just to really ensure that your team members are happy, that they're emotionally healthy, that they're physically healthy. And then, of course, that's also can be an issue in finding team members. Sometimes the economy doesn't make a plethora of people out there available to you. So really being able to show potential employees that you have a a a climate, within your company, a culture that is positive and encouraging. It's very attractive, and you're more likely to get new employees and retain the best of those employees.
Well, it's so interesting to hear that perspective and what things you've learned there. One of the things that makes me think of is I know that Valorous Circle has gone through some office changes in the last year, and in fact has become essentially a 100% virtual or remote company. And I
Mhm.
know that's, while that may not always apply in the home services field, I know that's something that a lot of our listeners are dealing with as they're having employees at home that maybe don't come back to the office, debating whether they have an office anymore. Can you
Mhm.
share a little bit with our audience, why was the decision made to go 100% remote, and maybe some how that's worked, and some tips on things people should consider if that's something they're wondering about?
Well, who would have ever thought before COVID that anybody would really work at home remotely? I mean, that was just a no-no. We had a few people on our team before COVID that I took a day here or there to work from home, just so they could focus a little bit better. But I was always really, hesitant to do that because I didn't really buy that they were going to get their work done. But with the event of COVID, we all had to go home. And so working from home at that point gave my employees really an opportunity to shine and to show that they could get their jobs done. They could get their jobs done well. Well, with that, we needed more ways to communicate with them while they were at home. So there are lots of different ways, not just Skype anymore, but you can use Zoom and you can use Google Meet. And there's lots of different ways now that you can have a communication and interaction with not just your customers, but also with your employees. Well, we actually closed our office. It was a great cost savings because very few of our employees even wanted to be there. Now they're working from home. They're saving money on gas and car repairs and clothes. We still do have a dress code, but ours has always been a little more casual. But heck, I can only see them from the waist up most of the time anyway. So it's a little more casual. They have more time because they don't have that commute time. So there's just so many positives to that. But I do have to say that sometimes it's hard to know if your employees are really putting in all of their time. So I actually just recently discovered a really cool software program that is a virtual office on the screen, and it's gamified. It's like you can be in there. Each one of my employees can be in there, and I can see that they're there. At the very least, I see a little avatar there of them, but then I can just double click by their office. My little avatar trots right over to their office. I can knock. You know, if they don't answer and it's during a time of the day that they should be working on, like, what's going on? Well, they know that I might do that or that other employees might need to talk to them as well. So they just have to be more present that way. And so it's a great way to ensure that they're accountable, but it's fun too. And I've had several employees tell me that they really feel like they're in the office without being in the office. And a lot of them miss that to some extent. And those that don't even miss that still like to be able to have that closeness and camaraderie of being all in one area together. So so far it's working out splendidly. I've been very, very pleased with the results so far.
Well, as you said, I don't think that, 5 years ago, any of us would have assumed that we'd be in a situation where so many people were so effective at working from home and that,
Right? Who
these
would have
spare
thought?
bedrooms were going to be turning into offices and all that. And there's so much I think that's changed there. I really commend you and you and your leadership team having the desire to try to embrace that. It sounds like it's worked out really well for both the company, but also for your employees. And we know nowadays keeping those great team members happy is really critical as well.
Mhm.
So I think that's super, super interesting. As we take a look forward, we're just starting 2024 as we're recording this and as it goes live. Talk to me a little bit, Beth, about what I don't know how good your crystal ball is, but from a business owner's perspective, as they look at marketing and the things they should be doing, what do you see being the important things that they should be at least evaluating in 2024 and maybe pursuing if they haven't in the past? Maybe, it's finally time. What would those be in your mind?
Well, let me get my crystal ball out here and I'll kind of wipe it off here so I can look into it well. Uh, I am always concerned about costs. So I diligently watch the outgoing money for the company and making sure that we're really spending every dollar in the best, most effective way. Now, that doesn't mean cutting things that we don't need. That means cutting things that aren't aren't necessary or that maybe there's a better way to do something that's a better value. Uh, I have done a lot of cost cutting over the last 6 months, and I tell you, it's really helped because the economy's tight. And I noticed a lot of our home service agencies have been having some issues as well, and so if we lose a client because they don't have money, it's a trickle effect, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So it's really helped that I did those cost cutting measures, because then if in a given month, maybe our revenue's down, it's not nearly as painful. So you can save, you can make money, so to speak, by saving money. And so I really think that that is something that everybody should be looking at. Another thing that I really recommend and I love is, in the US, we've had some issues finding good employees for a wage that you can afford. And so I actually have taken on some employees outside of of the US, and boy, I've been so impressed with them. They're working the same hours that I'm working, even if they're not in the same time zone. Their English is excellent. They're hard workers. They really want the work. And so I've been able just to help myself, help our company fill in some of those gaps that we weren't able to fill in with perhaps a qualified American employee by looking overseas. And that too is something I would have never dreamt of, 4 or 5 years ago. So that's also been a great benefit, and I would highly recommend that as well.
Good advice. I really appreciate you sharing that. Again, I know these are common things that a lot of agencies and entrepreneurs are running into and trying to figure out, and what they do, where they go. From a website perspective, with all the changes that are happening in AI and all that, do you still believe that a website's going to be important to businesses moving forward in the next few years, or is that something that you expect maybe is going to fall by the side?
I would be surprised if it falls by the side. I think that websites are very important because you have to have that hub of where people can go and get information. And if every company had a different type of hub, that would be confusing to potential customers because they wouldn't know where to go get the information they really need to verify that someone is credible, that they're an expert, that they really are in that business. So I don't see at this moment how websites could really go away. I think they will continue to evolve. And I think the way people get to the website will absolutely continue to evolve. I think the things the website will say, the way it looks, I think all of that will evolve. The content will definitely evolve. So I don't foresee that websites anytime in my lifetime will go away, that they'll always be necessary. But I couldn't possibly say what's going to happen 40 or 60 or 80 years down the line because things change so quickly. If we go back 100 years, let's look how much has changed. It's likely to change 4 or 5 times as much in the next 100 years.
It's a really interesting point, and I agree with you. I think it is so important that there's that one spot that people can go to get that information. And I know one of the things I've always believed is that your website's so important because it's one of the few things you control online, as opposed to
Mhm.
like a social media profile or what. And I remember having discussions with other businesses in the past about, hey, can I just use my Facebook page? And the answer is you
Right.
can,
And
but the problem is that your competitors might be advertising to the people visiting your Facebook page, and
Mhm.
obviously that's not what you want to have happening there. So I can
Mhm.
appreciate that. I made a note in part of my pre-planning, Beth, and I haven't asked you, but I'd love to ask you this question. I know a lot of our listeners that are not involved in digital marketing hear terms, in one specific term, about a landing page, and it causes confusion to them. And they go, what is a landing page? What does it mean? And all that. Could you explain to our viewers and our listeners what is a landing page, and do they just need one on a website? Do they need more? What do they use it for? And maybe just explain what that is.
Mhm. Certainly. A landing page is essentially a page on a website that is an input to that website. So let's just say I was out on Facebook and I saw a Facebook ad. And in that ad, there is a link, and that link will take someone to a landing page within my website. It's an input, basically, it's where I land. It's not necessarily the home page, and the home page is like the mother of all landing pages. That's the one everybody's familiar with. When you type in a domain name, URL, that's the first page you go to. But a landing page is basically a sub page or another page within that website that you would come to. And there's lots of different reasons why you would come to it. Maybe there's a particular service that you're offering as a company. You might want to have a landing page that then you can direct people from your ads or other social media to that page. And it might more specifically answer their questions. Maybe they're looking for something very specific. Let's say you're a damage restoration company. You might have a landing page on mold remediation or a landing page on, fire damage restoration. Someone coming to your website might not want to have to look for that. And if you're coming from another point, like an ad, you can bring them very specifically into a landing page. Landing pages can also have their own domain names. So not just a subdomain to your master domain name. So like ValorousCircle.com, we could have lots of landing pages that maybe would be called marketingautomation.com. And I would have that come to a specific subpage within Valorous Circle. Does that make sense?
It does. No, thank you for explaining that, because I know that's a question that a lot of people have had over time, and still one I think causes a lot of confusion. Is being involved in digital marketing, it makes so much sense to us because we've used that
Right.
term for a long time. But I think it's understandable why it doesn't always make sense to other business owners. So thank you for taking a moment to talk about that and explain that. I think that was a really good explanation. So the name of our podcast, Beth, as you know, is the 91 Day Success Podcast. And I love to always ask our guests, because they're all successful business people and agency owners, if you had to start over, or maybe you were going to advise somebody who was starting over, and you had $1,000 to your name for the business, you didn't have to worry about your living expenses and that, but your goal was to build a business that could generate $10,000 a month after 3 months or 91 days.
Mhm.
And there's no right or wrong here, but what type of things might you look at if you were going to do that, or you were advising someone to do that?
Well, $1,000 isn't very much money to get started. I will have to say that. So if I had $1,000, obviously I would have to just, have my expenses. I wouldn't really be able to hire anybody to assist me. So the first thing I would do is I would make sure that I picked out a service, one, that was in demand, two, that I could do myself. And then three, I would do the next three things: systematize, simplify, and automate the heck out of what I'm doing. So, and that I think with those three things all together, I think that I could hit that $10,000 after 91 days.
That's really good. Tell me a little bit more about the systematize, simplify, and then I forgot the third one already.
Automate,
But
automate.
automate.
That's
Tell me a
huge.
little bit about that, because that sounds like something every business owner should be paying some
Mhm,
attention to.
mhm.
Where did that come from, and what does that mean?
Well, simplify is basically looking at what you're doing and how you're doing it and making it as simple as possible. For instance, recently we actually simplified the packages. So we didn't have a bevy of different service offerings where people would have to pick out a bunch of things. It was confusing, We're given so many choices in life. We really get a little overwhelmed. So I wanted to simplify that and make it as easy as possible for potential clients, so that I could tell them using my expertise what I believe they would need in order to be successful and ultimately to land more leads, to get more customers. So I wanted to have something simple. That's not the end of it, though. You want to make sure that your processes to execute that service are as simple as possible as well. You need to be effective, and that generally means a simplification of what you're doing. And so the simplify is just really, really critical there. You can simplify by systematizing. And there's a lot of great systems out there already discovered and documented by thousands of different business people for thousands of different reasons that you can then implement into your business so that everything is systematized, excuse me. When it's systematized, it's much easier for your employees to follow it. There are less exceptions. You want a service to basically be executed the same way every single time. That way, it's easier for your employees. You can definitely make raving fans out of your clients much better because they know what to expect, and the level of quality will be much higher because it's not changing every time. There's just less room for mistakes. Then the third item is automation. And automation, come on, that's like, let's make things happen automatically with AI and so many different programs out there that allow us to very quickly automate, have something happen automatically without human intervention. That's also making your life easier as a business leader because everything is much more efficient. It's much more effective. It happens sooner, happens faster, happens better, happens more accurately, and it happens for less cost. And that's really important.
I love that. Thank you for explaining that. That's super helpful. I know it's something you've talked about that I've heard outside of this podcast, but never something you really explained. So thank you for that. That's awesome. Well, Beth, if people are listening today, they're interested in what you've had to say, and they'd like to connect with you to learn more about, either the services that Valorous Circle offers, or
Sure.
maybe picking your brain to understand a little bit about some of the experiences you've got with leadership and management. What's the best way for them to reach out and connect with you, Beth?
Absolutely. Well, they can go to our website, valorouscircle.com, and get a hold of me there. There's a phone number there for you, a website there, or they can reach out to me personally at my email address, which is beth@valorouscircle.com.
Awesome. Well, we'll put that down in the notes as well, so everybody can see that and that. And I just want to thank you, Beth, for taking the time today. I know you've got a lot going on, managing a large team and serving tons of clients. So thank you so much for taking the time today to join me on the podcast and share your story with our audience. I'm very grateful for that.
Thank you, Jonathan. It's been a privilege to be here.
And for all of you that have been listening and paying attention or watching, whatever, we really thank you as well. We appreciate that. And we really appreciate your feedback. Don't forget to press the like button, and please give us a 5-star rating if you would, and let us know we're doing a good job. Thank you, and make it a great day, everybody. We'll see you on the other side.
Bye bye.